question is on Pesach, do we need new glass utensils, or can you use the same ones you're using all year round? Just an interesting historic note that the Mishnah or the Gemara, to my knowledge, doesn't talk about glass utensils. It doesn't talk about glass dishes or things like that. It does. There's mention you can find in early sources about like little perfume bottles. Even I think maybe the Cincenas Hamon was made out of glass. It seems to be, but like that you have glass in your cabinet and you eat from it. That we don't find, and therefore, even though it did exist, I believe in the time of the Gemara, there were such a thing as glass utensils. Once there was glass blowing, there was glass utensils. But so the Rishonim are the first to talk about it. La halacha, what is the din with glass? And you have three opinions, just to keep track. The one opinion is that like glass is completely smooth and completely non-porous, and there's no way anything is getting into it or out of it, and just when it comes to kasher or Pesach even, just rinse it off and you're fine. That's one opinion. Another opinion is exactly the opposite, that the only precedent we find is klicheres. Klicheres comes from the earth, this comes from the earth. That comes maybe from, but they're both earthenware, then maybe that comes more from a clay-like type of thing, but this comes from sand, but it's an earthenware, and therefore, once you use it for hot anything, it stays like that forever. Those are the two opinions. And there's a third opinion that it's like metal. So what does it mean it's like metal? That you can take it, and if you've used it for tray for chametz, so you kasher it. You put it in hot water and you kasher it the same way you would a spoon or a pot or a pan. You could just kasher. Three opinions. How do we paskin? So the Shulchan Aruch in Tuf Nun Aleph, that's Hilchos Pesach, says the following: Klis chuchis, glass vessels, afilu machnisin l'kiyum, even if they're used for long-term storage, which the Shulchan Aruch makes a difference. Like, say you keep your whiskey in there for a year or two, so it's really had a chance to absorb. Afilu mishtamish ben, even if you used it for hot, ein srichin shum hechsher. That's the Shulchan Aruch speaking like Tosfos. She'enam boilim ukeshtiva ubeshtiva ba'alma sagi lahu. They're not bolea anything. Nothing absorbs into them. They're completely non-porous. They stay completely clean. By the way, our glass today is much better than the glass was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, I remember when I was a kid, glass did not look the same as it looks now. It was just not as clear and as salul, the way I remember it. But he says nothing can happen to your glass, and just go ahead and use it on Pesach. Comes the Ramah. And he says, Yesh bachmirin va'omer d'klis chuchis afilu agola loy mahanin lahu. But what about the Rishonim that say that nothing works for them? That's called klicheres. Why are you being so bakel? He says to the Shulchan Aruch, v'chein haminhag ba'Ashkenaz. And therefore in Ashkenaz, that's us, v'chein haminhag ba'Ashkenaz, we don't kasher or wash, or we don't use glass. In other words, just like we give it the same din as klicheres, except that the difference is that b'di'evet, like if it's going to be a hefsed beruba, the Rabbi goes out and say, you're going to lose a lot of money, you don't have any other plates, so then you can rely on the Tosfos that says that nothing is absorbed into it. So you have like an argument, mina kotze la kotze, it doesn't need anything, nothing helps it, and b'di'evet you kasher it. That's what the Rabbi says. B'di'evet, if you're stuck, you kasher it, and that should be our halacha. So therefore, you need. If you have glass plates or glasses to drink, or drinking glasses, even if you never used it for hot, so presumably you need new ones for Pesach. You don't use, that's the minhag. Ashkenaz is not to use the same glass, very similar as other keilim, which we'll learn about. Just an interesting ha'ara that this is in Hilchos Pesach. In Yeridea, so Yeridea Kuf Lamed Hey, which is where the halachas of kashering vessels are all the time, from kosher to treif to kosher rather, yayin nesech, all the different cases of kuf lav and hey in Yeridea. There the Haber says exactly the same thing as he says here. He says that klis chuchas, nothing can happen to it, don't worry about it. You don't have to, just doesn't need anything, just give it a rinse out. And there, the Rabbi doesn't bother him. The Rabbi doesn't say anything. The Rabbi just doesn't say, but the minhag Ashkenaz is to kasher it or not to kasher it, or it doesn't say anything. He just leaves the Haber as it is. So from here we can learn, there's so many details to this, but I want to say Yisoid, that on Hilchos Pesach, we don't use glass that was used all year round. And when it comes to Basar B'cholav, then we do use glass all year round, and that's the big difference. There should be no confusion. According to the Rabbi, according to the Haber, same thing all the time. But according to the Rabbi, which is our minhag, we make a distinction between Pesach. The Rabbi made a distinction between Pesach and all year round.